So this is the final slides for the visual elements presentation. So this is a very interesting couple of slides actually. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back one to the one before that. As we look at time and motion, what we explore is this question of is it the making of the art or is it the end result that's more important? So when we look at the image upper right of the women who are making these talismans or sort of good luck symbols with rice, flour, and cow dung outside of their homes, well, for them, I would say it would probably be the making. It's the making of the action where they consider the goodwill and the good luck, the good fortune that will come by putting these symbols outside of their home. Then maybe when people walk by and they see them, they'll still have that feeling of goodwill, and that could be one of the benefits of the art. Looking down to the lower right, I find this fascinating because these are quite beautiful sand paintings that are created by these Navajo shamans in order to bring healing. That's part of their healing ritual. So if you look closely at this photograph, you'll see it's a low-income house. Like it's not a grand palace, and it looks like the sand on the floor, as soon as the ritual is over, it will soon after that be covered because of the life going on in the home. And the woman is holding a sick child, and in this story that we're reading from the photograph, the shaman is creating the sand painting in order to help heal the child. Now, again, it's the act of creating that is important here, not the end result. Although you can find sand paintings sold as tourist items, small sand paintings, as copies of these. And they're sand with some kind of a substance added to harden them, and I would just say there's nothing like the real thing. Oh yes, and then we do want to take a quick look at space and time with these two images. The one below I find fascinating because it's done in the 1930s when photography was not nearly as advanced as it is now, and it's called Ball Dropped in Milk. So this is done with no Photoshop, with no image altering software. This is simply a photographer who is very skilled and had his timing of his aperture set just right to capture a ball dropped in milk. And the one above, Salvador Dali. To make this picture, I'm going to read this, he counted to 4, at which time he leapt in the air and assistants threw buckets of water and cats across the room. The photographer's wife held up a chair. So they tried this 26 times. And as I said at the end of the last video, when I think 26 times water, cats, I always wonder about the cats. They must have had a lot of cats, or else they were some pretty mad cats by the end of the day. All right, let's move on to perspective, which is our final visual element. The farther away an object is from us, the smaller it appears to the eye. And artists have used this truth and a variety of techniques to achieve this illusion of an object receding in space. One of them is called linear perspective, and it was actually developed in the Renaissance, and it's widely accepted in Western art. In the example to the left, it says to the right. Who wrote this? I wrote this. In the example to the left, these two balls are exactly the same size. But because the artist has used linear perspective on the checkerboard, it makes it look like the one at the top right is quite a bit larger. Now, one-point linear perspective is very simple. Look at the upper right. We have a vanishing point. Oh, and then we have a horizon line. So who can tell me where is the horizon line at any time? I'm going to tell you that it changes, and yet it's always the same. Oh, it's like a riddle from the Oracle of Delphi. Okay, here's the answer. The horizon line is eye level. So as you look at art, I invite you to consider the artist's eye level. And what they say is that 2 points will eventually converge in space. as you can see with this upper right example. Now this is called 1-point linear perspective, and then we use 2-point and 4-point and etc. Different kinds of perspective, aerial perspective, many ways of looking at this. Now I know that when I was a young artist, I was a little bit put off by perspective because it seemed sort of like math, or it was too it just didn't seem right with making art. And yet I've learned that you can do this visually. You can work out perspective visually, but it's very important to learn how perspective works so that you can double check yourself and just kind of and work it out and make it look believable. Now, up until the Renaissance, artists didn't use linear perspective, except for a very few examples that we have from the city of Pompeii that was buried under the volcano. So as we look at things like Asian art, Chinese art, you see that they did not use perspective, and yet it's still beautiful art. So that's one of those things that we've come to see as a given in our westernized view of art, and yet is relatively recent, having only come into the mainstream in around the year 1420 or 1430. Okay, this concludes the presentation on the visual elements, and as always, thanks for listening.